Don't forget that your skin is your largest organ, and the sun can be your skin's worst enemy. Dermatologist-recommended Neutrogena products offer the ultimate protection for your skin. From makeup remover wipes to Hydro Boost Water Gel Facial Moisturizer, BJ's has your entire lineup of Neutrogena skincare products. And now through December 3rd, save $4 on any Neutrogena product at BJ's. Love your skin back and save now through December 3rd, only at BJ's.
We all know a guy who only occasionally shaves for big occasions, and it's because that occasional shave really hurts. It's the time of year for big occasions, and yet there he is, suffering with that cheap drugstore razor. Let's help him out. Henson Shaving's line of razors, built with aerospace precision, deliver a smooth shave your dad, brother, and even son can enjoy, eventually. With replacement blades just 10 cents each, you'll buy it once, and they'll use it for life. How's that for the perfect gift? Celebrate with 100 free blades on your first purchase, and no subscription headaches. HensonShaving.com/holiday.
Hello, and welcome to the No Fruit Podcast.
Hello, everyone. This is Maurice.
And this is Kafa.
We thank you for tuning in today. Please be sure to like, share, and subscribe.
I hope you enjoyed today's episode.
Hey. What's going on?
What's going on?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm all right. So, y'all are listening to the No Fruit Podcast. And, last night we listened to the debate for vice president, right?
Mm-hmm.
And in that debate,
so much.
It was a lot. I really think that we're struggling to understand the real dynamic of our government, I guess.
And our leadership.
And I think that, on both sides, as whoever might have listened to the debate, there was a letter that was presented talking about, how we keep going against each other, and whether you're on one side of the aisle or the other, and you're constantly seeing your leaders fighting each other and things like that. And one of the answers that was presented was, even though we do have a great debate, we ultimately come together as a people in the end, right? As I'm listening to that, and I often think about how we do very similar things in the church.
Wow.
One of the things that Kafa and I have been talking about, over the last couple of days, we've been talking about church polity. And, it's funny because when you look up the word polity, Kafa, you know what the definition is?
I certainly didn't when you brought that word up. I thought you was giving it a short nickname for politics.
Yeah, church polity is a form or process of civil government or constitution, right? So I had posted a question last night on my Facebook, right before the debate. And it was funny how people, I don't think they truly understand the definition.
Right.
Because I think the way one person that answered, it kind of gave more of what their church believe than really the real structure of their church.
Political structure of the church.
Right. So.
I think some people don't really understand, Maurice, that there is a political structure in the church. So often we hear the separation of church and state.
Right.
And we think that they are totally different.
Right.
And not understanding that there are politics within the church. And we talked a little bit about that during our last podcast,
right.
Of voting and going through that political process that sometimes happens within some churches.
Right.
But I think a lot of people don't see that side of things. And I said that last week, that I didn't really see that side of it. I kind of went to church to sing and to praise God and, have a good time and learn more about the Lord. I didn't necessarily know about church governance.
Right.
I didn't know about the business side of church.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know about church polity, Maurice. So,
all right. So even though we're kind of jumping on the fence of two different conversations, and we'll probably mix the two throughout. So just follow us. Just stay around.
Or just listen to it
Right,
again.
right. Yeah, right. So on one hand, we're speaking, and when we talk about polity, let's tackle that part first. So when we talk about that, we're talking about in your particular church, denomination, or whatever, what form of governance have they taken on? So, for an example, does your church have a bishop, and does that bishop, not just take over your church, but other churches, or does he have a group of churches or a area, or whatever that might be, whatever your definition is for your particular denomination? I'm not going to make it very strict, just going to leave it general, right? So that's more what we've learned, and Kyle and I learned, over the last, couple weeks or so, is that that's a more of Episcopalian mentality, right?
Episcopal, yeah.
It's called root word, I think it's Episcopus or something like that. We learned, right? So then you have the Presbyterian model where you're ran by elders,
right?
Which in some churches or denominations, they have a bunch of bishops where I guess they could be called elders that makes decisions over a bunch of churches, right?
And the people do have some say a little bit in the Presbyterian model. And it's quite similar. When I say that, it's quite similar to the United States. We have presidents, and then we have people who vote them in, and there's some people who, are able to have a little bit more say than if it's just a bishop.
Right. And so then you have the independent church, which independent, meaning that you do not have a larger body your local church answers to, but you're still governed. You still could be governed from a bishop model or senior pastor model, or a model of having elders or deacons or stewards, however, whatever you might call that group of people. Then you have another church that's called congregational, and they're led by the congregation, by the members of the church. So, and understand, we're talking generalities. We're not saying specifically this, so I don't want a whole lot of backlash. You can say, oh yeah, y'all don't know what y'all talking about. Da. Listen, relax, relax. But I just want to make sure that, hey, just in general, from a general perspective, and if you have, really constructive information, share it. Just don't, it's the phrase, don't at us, pretty much, because, it is what it is. So I'll put it like that. So when it comes down to it, the, what model do you really have from a church perspective? As Kafa mentioned, the United States government, how they're set up. Do you look at it from a Episcopal perspective, or do you look at it from a Presbyterian perspective? And we had that conversation. We was going back and forth because in right now, when you look at our president, him kind of controlling the other two branches of government, to be honest, it looks like that we're more of a Episcopal,
where we have a monarchy,
quote unquote,
where he's kind of controlling or dodging even some things where the three parts are not totally equal. Right, where that might be the elder's perspective of, hey, it's a group of us managing the whole. So, but as we look at that and we think of our own growth in church and whatnot, I had mentioned to Kafa that I could see why at this state for the church, why they're struggling. Because overall people have a, today, this is my opinion, that I think people have a problem with
leadership overall. Right now, I think we're in a spirit of rebellion across the board. And it didn't just start now. It's been gradually happening over a period of time. I think that's why certain movements, there cannot be a real leader defined, because every leader that comes up, everybody rips them apart. You get what I mean? So I think that overall the people are not willing to, they want to make sure that they're heard and not just pulled by, like they're on a leash or hurt, like they're real cattle or anything like that. I think people really want to be heard overall. So, and in this, some of the workshops and things that Calvin and I listened to, they think that when ministry is to grow, it needs to grow from a more congregational mindset,
right? Where
the people really, in all honesty, they're sold on the mission.
Correct.
They're sold on the mission, and when you look at it from your budget perspective, right? If you have a budget and someone, and the pastor say, all right, here's our operating budget, whatever, and the people vote on it. In
most churches, they don't have any other action,
right?
Any other accountability to that budget.
Right.
It's presented to them at a board meeting, and that's all that they kind of really have. If they have questions about the budget or want updates as a member, it's kind of frowned upon.
Right. It's like, yo, here it is. You're going to love it or you can get out.
Right.
Mentality.
And then again, throughout the calendar year or fiscal year, whatever it is that the church is operating on, again, as a member, if you ask questions, then it's frowned upon.
Right.
Right. So how does that make one feel as a member of the organization not to really have a say
right.
in the organization?
Right.
And I think one of the lectures that we were listening to was saying that it's truly a teachable moment.
Mm-hmm.
If you are holding your members accountable and teaching them during the year of the process, teaching them during the year of how much things cost, then they will better understand and better appreciate when funds are needed.
And so, you know what? And I think about, now that you said that, what's funny? Is that the way people will learn the value of a dollar and be able to manage their own personal finances even better.
Even better, right.
Because now I can be taught by my church, be taught by my local church. I'm seeing how it's maneuvering, things like that. Let me rethink what I'm doing at home.
And even the better thing is you're not just learning those principles and the value of a dollar and how a dollar works.
Right.
But you're learning it from a biblical background. Like, what does God want you to do with your money?
Right.
How does God multiply? The Bible says, hey, you give and it will be given back to you, pressed down, shaken together, and running over. So you should have overflow. Right. So the church also should have overflow. The members should have overflow. And so why is the church not teaching that? And it's again because I think, as you're stating, there's not much buy-in for it.
Right.
It's kind of that, okay, well, the pastor said it or the bishop said it, and you don't have any further input into it. So you don't have that buy-in. You don't have that connectivity. You don't have that truly belonging. Even though we say we're members of the body of Christ and we're members of the church and we're members of said congregation, sometimes you just don't feel a part.
Right.
And not only when it comes to finances, Maurice, but even when you talk about, you said something about leadership. I can recall so many churches that we have gone to, the only ones that really go to Bible study or are elevated to go to certain workshops are those who are on a track to become a pastor. But it's a job of a pastor. Yes, they should know how to rightly divide the word of truth. They should know how to be passionate. They should know how to give a word. They should know about God,
right.
but so should a member.
Mm-hmm.
We are all called,
right,
no matter what position we have within the fivefold ministry, no matter what position we have in the church as a whole, but we all should be able to give a word. We all should be able to study to show thyself approved. So why is it that, we don't push and advocate for our members to kind of be on that same level and to know, like our church leaders, our pastors and bishops and all of those, I think those are the things that elevate them and make them, unfortunately, a little ungodly by looking down at others. Well, I have a doctoral degree, or I have a master's degree in divinity, and I've gone through seminary, and I've gone through this institute, and I've gone through this class, and so forth and so on. I remember when I was starting to go to Bible school, and everyone was saying, well, what do you want to do? Like, why are you here? Why are you going? And it's just because I just wanted to know the word of the Lord.
Right.
One, I wasn't getting a whole lot from my place of worship,
mm-hmm.
So I wanted more, and I was seeking more, and that school taught me more,
mm-hmm.
So, and I think that's something that we all should have and push for, is to have more. And unfortunately, in some of the, what's the word, Maurice? Polities.
Polity.
In some of the polities of the way that churches are governed, it's top down or bottom up. And, those who make up the majority of the body of the church, the majority of the body of Christ, are not fed what's needed to keep the church going.
Mm-hmm.
What's needed to, if it's a business standpoint, to keep the business going.
Right.
So that's just my little thoughts on it. It was very interesting to hear all of this. I hadn't remembered it, but then I pulled out one of my textbooks from ministry school, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is all right here. And I highlighted it and read through it and had little notes on the side and everything. I hadn't recalled it. It's been several years, but yes, Lord, deal with me. Lord, bless me. Y'all pray for me. Pray for me,
See,
please.
the when we have these type of conversations, I don't believe that people truly understand where Maurice and Kafa are and where we have been. And I think people, and for those that have been around us, they might also forget, what our backgrounds are. What'd you say?
I forgot.
I know, right? But I believe that you walk in that every day, that you might not always remember exactly. So, for, as Kafa just mentioned, her going through Bible school, Bible trainings, Maurice being a licensed minister over 5 years ago. So it's the reality is that both Kafa and I have been in ministry for a very, very long time. And I'm just using some of the more recent things with me just mentioning that, but that does not include all of the things if you listen to our previous episode, I talk about how I've been a leader in ministry since I was 11, 12 years old. Right. So me being in my mid 40s now, we're talking well over 30 years of ministry, quote unquote. Right. So, in reality, we've been around a lot of things when it comes from the ministry perspective of giving of ourselves, along with understanding how things work and what is the pecking order. Because of where we were in Episcopalian vibe mentality where we had a bishop, and then it had trickled down from there. Right. Where there was what was called presiding elders to pastors to whatever. So, and then some of the auxiliary organizations, also there was a pecking order, right. So to speak. So, in reality, I was one of those persons that was in the pecking order, in all reality. So when I take a look at the structure of the church, And when I take a look at what's going on with politics now, for me personally, I think this is why I'm in this mindset that I do believe, out of everything we've learned and talked about over years, I believe I'm starting to become more of a congregational type person.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think that, and I just had a conversation with a young preacher the other day about sometimes, I think you and I had talked about it a couple of days ago too, Kav, that, you know, you get so used to people being pushed up to the front.
Right.
You know, and people that sit on the front row and whatever else. We even talked about those that sit in the middle and the back, you know, back
mm-hmm.
in the church.
Mm-hmm.
And really, in all honesty, in some of our churches, if you're not tithing I can't even say tithing. If you're not giving up a certain amount of money, your voice is nowhere near heard.
Mm-hmm.
But when you don't truly understand why that person is not giving, then you don't know what they really have to offer.
Right.
You know, you don't know that, hey, maybe they just don't have the money to give. Or even if they have the money to give, if you don't value what they have to say, what am I investing my time and energy into?
Right. And I think, again, some of this church governance is what can get in the way of people, as you would say to your pastor friends, of pulling back their pocketbooks.
Right.
You know, because of this hierarchy of the.
Don't forget that your skin is your largest organ, and the sun can be your skin's worst enemy. Dermatologist-recommended Neutrogena products offer the ultimate protection for your skin. From makeup remover wipes to Hydro Boost Water Gel Facial Moisturizer, BJ's has your entire lineup of Neutrogena skincare products. And now through December 3rd, save $4 on any Neutrogena product at BJ's. Love your skin back and save now through December 3rd, only at BJ's.
Way that people operate, and it gets to their heads.
Right.
Where they're no longer as humble as Christ.
Right.
They're no longer servants as Christ.
Right.
They're no longer, willing to wash the feet, of their servants. So it's just so different. And I think with that, people get frustrated and they see through that. And people come to church because they want that humility. They want someone to see what they're going through.
Right.
None of us are perfect. All of us have sinned. So I don't want to go to church and then have you put your nose up, as you look down at me because I went through X, Y, and Z last week, or because I went through whatever as a youth. It's just not fair.
Well, see, even as I'm sitting here thinking, my brain is on fire.
Let me get a cup of water.
No, we good. So I think we are fighting against what's being brought to us from the United States of America's government. Mm-hmm. We keep talking about, one of the things that keep pounding the pavement on is taxes, right?
Right.
And how they're making allowances for those that have a lot of money.
Mm-hmm.
And taxing those that don't. It's very similar to the church.
Right.
The church does the exact same thing. Mm-hmm. So in reality, for those of you who sit in a seat of power, what truly makes you different? Because, if you want to say, oh, well, biblically it says the 10th and, storehouse and, all those various things that you hear all the time, but again, who says that person or persons don't have more to give?
Right.
And the other question is 10th, always financial, or is it talent?
Right. And we've always,
and we keep talking about those type of things,
mm-hmm.
What's the differences, and everyone had, and I had a conversation with someone else about this too. When people talk about the Bible and how they give meaning to scripture.
Mm-hmm.
And then, someone said, well, theologians, this and that and the other. Well, keep in mind, even with those persons who are theologians, they argue amongst themselves about what certain things mean, let alone for those who are just leaning into their own understanding.
Right.
What does it mean to them? And and is there a real definition to what's being said beyond talking to that individual who actually wrote the scripture?
Right. I mean, I think when it comes to the theologians and even the politicians, for whatever they stand on, whatever their argument is, that's their argument.
Right.
So when you take that, you're just taking their view of things and not really knowing it for yourself. And I think that's the difference between Christianity, church and Christ, and the politics side.
Right.
I can't, like you said, if the vice president of the United States says this or the president says that, I have to take them for what they say.
Mm-hmm.
I can't go a whole lot more further. I mean, I could pray about it and ask for discernment, but I can't get to anything real for myself.
I
think for,
go ahead. I'm sorry.
With the church leadership, and in the church, if the theologians say that this verse means this, this word no means thus and so, at this particular time, and they can give historical references of why it is that. But I can pray about it and figure it out, because at the end of the day, when it comes to the Bible belief, God's going to judge me for that, from me. I can't go to God and say, I believe that because John said so.
Right.
You know what I mean? Well, how come you didn't look for yourself?
Mm-hmm.
How come you didn't come to me and pray to me and ask me for better understanding? Why did you go off of what John thus saith? Many ministers would say it on Sunday, like, I'm going to preach to you, but I challenge you to go back and write these scriptures down and go back and study them for yourself.
I want to know what preacher says that, because I don't hear too many say that.
Not anymore. But I'm saying coming up, that's what I heard. I mean, and that's why I had so many books with sermons written down.
Mm-hmm.
Where I was writing what the sermon topic was and what their scripture was, and then whatever 5-10 scriptures that they gave as points of, and references.
Right.
I would write all that down.
Right.
Yes, and I would go back and review it, and sometimes be like, oh gosh, that's not quite what I thought it was when he was saying it.
Right.
So, or I got further clarification. So again, and that's just the difference between, like you said, the world politics and the church governance.
Yeah, I think they're one and the same, and I think they're also different at the same time. As much as we talk about separation of church and state, it's very hard to do.
Right. Well, I think
it's very hard to do,
because those who started some of this were into politics,
Right.
So that's those who were in politics leaned on the word of God to kind of form what the politics are. So I think they are very close. This country started because they wanted to be separate from the politics and the religious parts of another country. So, it is all intertwined. But hey, we'll understand it all better by and by.
Wow, I mean, you just going to just drop it like that?
I have nothing else to say. You said it, I don't know what more to say.
I think we really need to hear from you guys.
Yes.
Because
my Maurice's mind is blown. It's on fire. So.
Because there's a lot of things that and doing this research and getting more information about all the above, it's really, as a said, my mind is blown because I've never thought of it in this perspective. And some things, until you really start to study a little bit more for yourself, then you get a better understanding why things are being done the way they are. And you start to understand better why the structure and how in reality the Bible is used to maneuver certain situations. We talk about, study to show thyself approved. I think all of us need to study more overall, and we all need to have more conversations, open conversations about these things.
Iron sharpens iron, so we need to do that. And
that when we start to think about the real structure of the church, and we start to look at in a real sense as to, especially for those that are really into church growth and development, why are certain churches growing and others are not? What is their real vibe? What is their recipe?
Are they biblically based? Are they biblically sound?
Well, one of the things, again, some of the things that we've listened to and taught, whatever, that whole congregational mindset, they've been able to show more scriptures in the New Testament that supports that versus the Episcopalian and the Presbyterian in the Old Testament. So in some regards, are we still, for those that are in those heavy denominational churches, are you still living in the Old Testament and not delivering the good news? It's just an idea. It's just a question. I'm not saying that you are or not. It's just, again, someone's perspective.
Right.
Is someone, and in looking at that, that's just my perspective. I just wonder if we've been living in an Old Testament mindset versus, you're telling me, oh yeah, we preach the good news and we're progressive and things like that. Well, are you, from what these workshops was telling us, it makes me rethink ministry.
Right.
It truly makes me rethink ministry and really makes me truly rethink, does anyone really have the right recipe, especially since you have a lot of churches out there, period. It's a lot of churches out there. I mean, a lot of them. And for those of you who's in Philly, it's like you can get to a church before you go get some penny candy now.
Nobody has penny candy. But, one last thing. And, with that recipe, if you will, and we already had a podcast that talked about changing the menu, but with changing the recipe, if you will, those of the Episcopal faith congregation and the Presbyterian congregation, they hold so heavy on a lot of rituals and edifices and showy type things. And right now with this pandemic, we can't have those.
And I would agree, because a lot of there's
no candelabras, there's no
all the stuff that aided in worship, quote unquote. You no longer have that available,
right?
As you said, from a show perspective. Now, can someone have it in their Zoom worship service? I mean, they could. People, there are some people that are still in the church doing their Zoom, services or live services, but they're not necessarily showing, number one, the processional.
Correct.
Like, they're not doing the pomp and circumstance of that part, right? Some people, what they call the call to worship or their reading response type things in the very beginning of the worship service.
Right.
They're not doing all of that. A lot of them are just going straight into a praise and worship mentality. Let's do some announcements. Let's get to the word.
They're giving the people what the people really came for.
Right.
So it's more congregational in some nature,
right,
than it is Episcopal, where we have all of these steps and we have a certain method to worship, and we have, again, a lot of ritual things.
Well, like this bishop, said not too long ago, a couple of weeks ago, right on Facebook. His son is a pastor right now, and they were just having a dialogue on Facebook Live, and he said the church overall needs to reimagine church and needs to get rid of all the fluff, because you have too many educated people right now who don't need all that. Number two, you probably have just as many people in the congregation with a master's of divinity as your, just like you,
right?
And when it comes down to it, what's the time like? Everyone is not ready to just stay in service 3 or 4 hours anymore overall. Now, certain denominations, they do. They want to tarry in the spirit, things like that, which is nothing wrong with that. But then you have some that's kind of like, I want to get in and get out. So,
but those who tarry in the spirit, they're there for a different purpose. It's not, again, like you said, it's a little bit different on what they're looking for and what they're going through that causes that tarry. You're tarrying because you want the Lord to come and bless and heal or what, so it's kind of like that healing and deliverance service type of thing where you have a little bit more of the tarrying, but just your, normal Sunday morning or worship service, it's just maybe not there, like you said.
Right.
But again, I think that, like you said, we have to reimagine. We have to kind of refocus. We have to look at things. And now is the time. All of our church leaders, how do you do that? What does that look like? And I'm not saying, hey, if you're Episcopal, change and become congregational, but you may have to look at your Episcopal governance from a congregational standpoint. What does a congregation need? Who is your congregation?
Right.
And what do they need? And how do you give it to them? How do you empower them? Because at the end of the day, they have to get through day by day.
And one of the things that was pointed out, and I know that, this is a long show. Like we haven't been this long in a minute. But one of the things that was pointed out was the letters sent to the churches. All the letters minus, I think he said two. were to the people of the church. He also mentioned, one of the persons that we were listening to in this seminar, he was talking about how in the book of Matthew it's talking, it's talking to the people as a whole and not to the elders, the priests, or whatever else.
Right.
It's talking to the people.
Even when it's time to make correction, even when it was time to confess, you had to go to the people and confess.
Right.
If you needed help, then it was go find wise counsel within the people.
Right.
Not go to your pastor or go to your bishop or anyone within the fivefold ministry. It was go to the people. So,
again, so that's where, this is
but then
where
it gets right back into the government. We the people.
Yeah, I guess it does.
We the people, we hold these truths.
To be self-evident.
Right. So, again, it's just, they're so similar.
Right.
It's so similar. So
so I think that as we,
the people,
the No Fruit Podcast, continue to try to plant seeds out there, because that's all we're trying to do. We're just trying to plant seeds. How are we developing the fruit out there? What are we doing to nurture those seeds? What are we doing to feed those seeds? Are we, are we going to come across people that's going to continue to try to be a tsunami and just wash us out, and suppress us and get rid of us? Are we going to have people that's going to come over and nurture it and baby it, give it sunlight, talk to it every day, and wipe off our little leaves as you say, oh, little baby, those type. I'm sorry, y'all not looking at me as I'm wiping off leaves, and stuff like that, but really, from this, the name of No Fruit Podcast comes from this perspective. What are we really doing?
And real quick, I know, like you said, this is a good topic. We're going to continue on this, I think, for the rest of the month, y'all. So continue to tune in. But one thing that just came to me, that when you said wash things out, a lot of times these polities fight against each other.
Yes, they do.
They fight against each other. I didn't think about that until you just said that. So maybe we'll talk about that next.
Yeah, we'll leave that alone. So, but we thank y'all for listening.
Hey, thank you so much.
And Kav, you got some announcements?
I do have a few announcements, Maurice. Today's church announcements are, please check us out on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Again, that's Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. For short, that's FIT. Get fit, everybody. Leave us a comment, like, share, subscribe, tell a friend, tell somebody that's not a friend, even though they all should be your friends.
Right.
But pass the information along. Let them know where we are.
Right.
We're kind of everywhere that podcasts can be found, even on Amazon, you guys. We are everywhere. So check us out again, the No Fruit Podcast. And while you're on Amazon, we have some merchandise that's coming out that says the No Fruit Podcast. And there's a few other things as well. So go ahead and take a look. Prime Day is coming up. Maurice, tell us a little bit about what you have coming on for Prime Day on Amazon.
Prime Day. Yo, do you understand? Prime Day is October 13th and the 14th. And what that means is just go on Amazon. They just want you to go shop, right?
Shop.
So what I would like for you to do is look up these words: the Positive Energy T-shirt shop. Okay?
Yes.
The Positive Energy T-shirt shop is TEE shirt shop. Okay? It's spelled all the way out. So go in there, get your No Fruit Podcast T-shirts today. Like you can get them today, but also get them on Prime Day. All right. Mm-hmm. And not only can you get those, but we do have some other shirts on there. Unicorn Island, That'll Never Work Podcast, which is another podcast channel we have. So I want y'all to go and support us. Okay.
Yes.
We're here for you. I'm gonna have all over the next couple of days. I'm going to be advertising what we have going on, y'all.
So again, even with that information, as you see it, share, like it, pass it on, please. We would be so grateful.
Right.
And as you know, we love you for life.
Most definitely. So we thank y'all, and we will check y'all out a little later.
God bless you all. Have a good one.
Peace.
This week's episode has come to an end, but the fun doesn't have to stop here. If you have any questions, suggestions, or feedback, head over right now to Twitter and Facebook and like, share, and get involved. Join us next time.
Don't forget that your skin is your largest organ, and the sun can be your skin's worst enemy. Dermatologist recommended Neutrogena products offer the ultimate protection for your skin. From makeup remover wipes to Hydro Boost Water Gel Facial Moisturizer, BJ's has your entire lineup of Neutrogena skincare products. And now through December 3rd, save $4 on any Neutrogena product at BJ's. Love your skin back and save now through December 3rd, only at BJ's.
We all know a guy who only occasionally shaves for big occasions, and it's because that occasional shave really hurts. It's the time of year for big occasions, and yet there he is, suffering with that cheap drugstore razor. Let's help him out. Henson Shaving's line of razors, built with aerospace precision, deliver a smooth shave your dad, brother, and even son can enjoy, eventually. With replacement blades just 10 cents each, you'll buy it once, and they'll use it for life. How's that for the perfect gift? Celebrate with 100 free blades on your first purchase, and no subscription headaches. HensonShaving.com/holiday.